Hello. Today I'm going to be walking through how to create a auto-aligned time lapse out of your Chronolog photos. Going from this to this. Look through your photos. You can do that by pressing the play button. You can also manually use the forward key button. Your options are you can download every single photo from your time lapse with this button down here where it says download photos. That will download a zip file that you can open and all of the files will be there. Your other option is to download each file one by one depending on the photos that you would like to choose. I have pre-selected photos from this particular time lapse to speed up our process here. What I was looking for as I was going through these photos were really clear evidence of change and progression. So when I'm looking through photos like this, those are that's a big change. I think that would be important to document in the time lapse that we create. Whereas when we get to April, there's not a lot of change from photo to photo. Depending on what you'd like your time lapse to illustrate and over what time period, you might choose to pick one from April or one from June when you're a very busy month. There are multiple submissions on April 30th, so I probably wouldn't choose both of those photos, for example. Other things you might see, I'm going to go back in time here a bit, are different aspect ratios. So people have different phones, but if it doesn't show a large change, I would shy away from using photos that look are framed pretty differently than the rest. I also caution against blurry photos or photos where, someone's finger is in it or someone's face. Maybe obvious tips, but keep these things in mind as you're choosing. Really dark photos or really sort of bright, whitened out photos don't do well with the Photoshop software. It's also hard on our eyes as we're looking from a time lapse. Photos in quick succession. It's hard for the eye to catch what sort of change we're looking for in this photo. Those four things, I think. Photos that are in clear focus, photos that have a similar level of light. The change is really obvious from one photo to the next, and there's no sort of outstanding elements like fingers or people, unless you'd want that. I have now downloaded all of my photos at this point that I want, and I've put all of those photos in one folder. I've named it after the site code. So the site is SCR102. Next, I am going to open up Photoshop and import these in a very specific way. I will create a new file. What I'm looking for is width of 2000, height of 1000 pixels. Next, I will click create. And then it's time to upload all of my photos in here. The way I do this is I click on File, Photoshop File up at the top. I go all the way down to Scripts. And here I want to click Load Files into Stack. So we have File, Scripts, Load File into Stack. This asks you to choose the photos that you want to import. Click Browse. Go ahead and find that file with the photos that you downloaded. Here we are. I will want to select all of these photos at once and click Open. You can click on that first photo, hold down the Shift button, scroll all the way to the end of the list, and click on the very last photo. That will highlight them all. Next, I clicked Open. And what this does is it loads all of these files into this little square. If these are out of order, go ahead and click Sort by Name. Given that the file names have the date at the front, this should order them in chronological order. So next, what I'm going to do is click this button here where it says Attempt to automatically align source images. Photoshop will automatically take every single photo in this order and align them one on top of each other. And we will export each of those layers, so to speak, into their own files. And this will be a perfectly aligned series of images of your location. We'll click OK. Now, depending on the processing speed of your computer, this may take anywhere from a couple minutes to 15 minutes. It also depends on, I can see the video is glitching a little bit. It also depends on how many photos are in the time lapse. In my case, I'm very lucky to say I have a great computer processor. So that took about 30 seconds. And what you're left with is this sort of chaotic looking collage. And what this is every single photo that I've imported on top of each other, starting with the first photo in the earliest point of the time lapse. So each photo has its own layer. If I click the eye, it makes that first layer disappear, and so on. And you'll notice there, some of these photos don't quite align perfectly. These top two look great in terms of the riverbank, and the trees are aligned with one another. But when I go down one more layer, it doesn't quite know what to do with this one. You have a choice here. You can manually move it, which is what I do here. I can move it like this to be about aligned. But in this case, Photoshop has distorted it enough that I don't want to use this one anymore. So I'll delete this file. Yes, I want to delete this particular layer. Okay, so now we're back. Photos are aligning better now. Occasionally, I'll have one that's sort of out of sorts. I'll move that in alignment manually. Something else that you can do if you want to keep this particular photo, make sure it aligns, is to make this photo a little more see-through so you can see the photo underneath it, and you can adjust the opacity in that case. So I'll kind of make this image a little more see-through so I can see the one underneath it and align roughly with the environment here. So some of this, Photoshop does its best to align every photo exactly, but some of this is manual work, so you can decide, is this photo worth it enough to my time lapse, sort of manually adjust it into alignment, or am I okay with deleting this particular one and just keeping the rest that Photoshop has successfully aligned? The software is essentially looking for common elements, static elements that do not change. So even though we see a lot of seasonal change across this particular site, the tool can latch onto maybe particular tree trunks or the shape of the shoreline here. Okay, now that I've gone ahead and checked my time lapse, I will turn up all of these layers back on. I want to be able to see them all. I'm basically going in reverse order and making all of these images appear again. So now to export all of our photos, go to File, Export, and scroll all the way down to Layers to Files. This means we're exporting every single layer individually. Next, we have to choose a destination for these files. So where do we want these files to end up after we have exported them? Click Browse. I suggest creating a new folder for these images that are aligned, and I'll title it SCR 102, and I'll just say aligned so that I know these are my photos that have been through Photoshop. These are the ones I want my time lapse. Now that I'm here, click Open. That will set the destination. Next, I want to add a prefix to every single file, every single layer that is exported here. What that will do is make these photos, these files, more easily identifiable for me for later on in the process. I suggest naming them after your site code, so SCR 102. And again, I suggest putting aligned. Now, file type, I want to be JPEG. That's great. If you have a good amount of space on your computer, I would go ahead and set that image quality for as high as possible. Now we will click run. We'll see a little preview of our time lapse here as Photoshop exports each individual file. These photos are pretty well aligned. I'm happy with this result. I could fiddle with it a little bit more and move images a little closer together if I wanted to, but this also serves my purpose. Great, export layers files was successful. So now on my desktop, I can navigate to the folder where I put all of these files. I can see it's easily named, aligned. I know these are my images. Every single file you'll see has the prefix that we've added, SCR102 aligned, and it will also be ordered in terms of number. Okay, let's move on. I'm back to teach you how to take the photos that you have aligned in Photoshop and create a time-lapse video out of them. So there's two ways of doing this. One, if you have Adobe's video editing software called Premiere Pro, that's a very simple way to do that. But the more accessible way is using Canva. That is free to use. Create an account with your email and open up the video editor, and that's where we will start. Click Edit a Video. Essentially, we will upload all of the photos that we're working with that we've aligned in Photoshop, place them one after another on the timeline, the video timeline, press play, and it should be a beautiful aligned video. We can export that as an MP4 or as a GIF, depending on how you want to use it. The first thing you want to do is create a project folder. So navigate to where it says Projects, click there, and create a folder. This is where we'll have all of the time-lapse photos organized in one spot, easy to find. Name your folder something that you'll remember. My SCR102 time-lapse, that's my site number that I'm using today. Continue. Great. Now we have a folder here, my SCR102 time-lapse. Click on that folder and upload all the photos. When I clicked upload files, the folder that I'm keeping all of my aligned photos in just magically appeared. But if you have to search for it, make sure you know where it is. These are all my aligned photos. And right now they're all in order from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 46. Your photos might not be in numerical order. If they're not, make sure to reorder them however your computer allows. Highlight them all at once. You can click the first file, hold down the Shift key on your keyboard, and click the last file, open. Great. Canva will take a moment to upload all of these into its system. Should take maybe a minute or two. Now we'll get familiar with what's on our screen here. So to the left, we have our folder full of all of our images, of course. Down here, this is a frame. So right now, whatever's appearing on the canvas will last for 5 seconds. We can add many more frames, which we will. And as the frame changes from one to another, there creates our video. So now it's time to take the first image from our time lapse and put it onto the frame. This part is a little bit tricky. Canva uploads it tries to upload photos in numerical alphabetical order, which is what we want. But sometimes photos are a little out of order, so you do need to manually check what we're working with. To see the file name for your photos, hover over an image here and click on the 3 dots. We can see this is image number 46. This is the very last photo in our time lapse. So I will scroll all the way down to the beginning to hopefully we should start on image 0. There we go. Image 0. This is the first one for our time lapse. I just clicked and dragged it onto our screen. Now, of course, it's
very off center. It's small. I want to blow it up so it fits the entire canvas and we don't have any of these sort of gaps. The way to do that is to click on this here, circle, click, hold, and drag. This will make the image nice and large. And see, now I can't see that button to drag anymore. So I will drag the entire image itself by clicking anywhere on this image, holding my mouse and dragging it back so I can see that button again. I'll make it nice and big. I'm just dragging outside the screen until it fills my entire canvas. So this image, I don't want it to appear for 5 seconds, which is what the default is for every frame. I want it to appear for about 0.5 seconds. In a time lapse, these images, we don't want them to stay on the screen for too long, but too short, and the viewer can't understand what change they're looking for from photo to photo. To change the duration of a frame, double click on the number 5 seconds. Great. And this little box should pop up. You can manually adjust this to about 0.5 seconds, or you can type it in. So that's just one frame in our video of 46 frames, because that's how many photos we have. We will duplicate this frame, and I'll show you why in a minute. To duplicate a frame, hover over that frame itself. Look for the 3 dots again, click on that. There's an option to duplicate page. Notice there's also a keyboard shortcut for this, which is Command D. It might look a little bit different on your keyboard. Keep that in mind because we're going to do this a lot of times. Duplicate page. Next, we have a frame here, brand new frame. It has the same exact image on it, but you can tell we're on the second frame because it's highlighted in purple. Now, we will drag and drop our second image of the timeline into this photo, clicking on the 3 dots again, saying, okay, yes, I have image 0 currently on my canvas, and I want to put image 1 as my second photo. I know it's a little bit confusing the way that Photoshop automatically numbers this, but here we are. Take this photo, click on it, hold your mouse down, drag it over onto the screen. Hopefully, do you see what it did there? It replaced that first image. That's what we want. Sometimes it might look like this. Don't let go yet until we have that exact match. Let go. We have replaced that first image with our second image. If you're having trouble with this step and you keep dragging and dropping and it looks like that, make sure that the image that's already on your canvas is highlighted. And that just means click on it, and this sort of purple line means that it's selected, and then try dragging and dropping into the image. This part is the trickiest part. When you get this, you're good to go. Now we just repeat those last 2 steps for a while. This is a manual process on Canva. If you do have Adobe Premiere Pro, it's a little bit quicker in that, but either way, it's good practice. Video editing is a good skill to have. Now you have it. The next step is to duplicate this frame. Again, you can either click the 3 dots here and manually do it, duplicate page, or you can make sure that the frame is selected, it has that purple ring around it, and do Command D on your keyboard. That's what I just did. Command D, it created a new frame. I am going to go find my 3rd image, which is my 0002 file name. Great. And drag it and drop it. Same thing as before. Now I will make sure that my frame is highlighted, duplicate it again, find my 3rd image. Where is it? Drag it, drop it. There we go. To see how it's going, you can always click this play button here and it will play all of the frames in order. Each frame, again, we've set to be 0.5 seconds. Okay, so next, imagine that I have imported all of these photos. I have created 46 frames with 46 photos. My time lapse looks beautiful. I'm ready to export it and make it a video. Navigate up to the share button in the upper right hand corner. Click that. and click download. You have the option of exporting it either as a video, MP4 video, which is the automatic default, or you can export it as a GIF. GIFs tend to be smaller file sizes. You have both of these options. Click download, and your video will be ready for you to use. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, please email us at info@chronolog.io. Check out the instructional document that we have, and happy time lapsing.